Let's return to our main story this evening. President Obama says he's made no final decision on Syria, but is considering what he called limited action. Well, earlier, the American Secretary of State, John Kerry, said the U.S. had compelling evidence that the Assad regime in Syria was responsible for a suspected chemical weapons attack in Damascus. Well, Dr. James D. Boys is a political historian specialising in the United States and its place in the world. He's a visiting senior research fellow at King's College London and joins me now in the studio. I was asking one of our correspondents about this. President Obama's quote about a red line, a line in the sand, has he become a hostage to fortune at that comment?
I think he certainly has. When he made that remark just over 12 months ago in the lead up to the presidential election, he by all accounts had gone beyond his remit, and subsequently the White House and the president have attempted to walk back from that position and hemmed and hawed when faced with evidence of malfeasance by the Syrian government. Now all of a sudden that has changed. We're into a second term and the White House appears to be in all sorts of a hurry to launch some sort of a strike against Syria. And I think that David Cameron has to some degree fallen into that race to judgment.
Many are saying it might have been better for David Cameron to wait until almost today or tomorrow, because it might have been easier to get his vote passed.
I think you're absolutely right, and I think if he'd waited until the UN weapons inspectors had reported, if he'd waited until after John Kerry spoke, I'm sure you carried the speech earlier on, he made a rhetorical speech that was particularly convincing, I think, and I think a lot of people would have been more inclined to vote in favour having heard that. But what's remarkable is how the Secretary of State's rhetoric is getting ahead of the President's policies at this point. So the President tonight has sort of said, well, it's not as cut and dry as that. It's quite remarkable, I think.
Is that a mistake? Because when he got the second administration, he changed his foreign policy team about, and there are some new faces in there. Do you think that's partly their responsibility?
I think they're having an impact. If you look at the new people who've come in, John Kerry, Susan Rice, and also Ambassador Power at the United Nations. She, of course, was a devout humanitarian interventionist, very critical of the Clinton administration, and as a result of that, I think you're seeing a whole new load of pressures being brought to bear upon the President, and it's almost as though his advisors are ahead of the President in this process.
What about public opinion in America?
Well, let's talk about figures. Some 9% of Americans in favour, 60% against in a recent Ipsos poll. So there's clearly no public appetite. There's no appetite on Congress for this. And of course, the Congress is far from favourable to the White House generally. So if the President were to move in the direction of trying to get congressional approval, I think he's going to be in for a rather rough ride.
Dr. James D. Boys, thank you very much indeed for joining us, Senior Research Fellow at King's College London. Thank you.